Samantha Carlisle appeared to have the perfect life wealth, a luxurious yacht, and a husband who seemed devoted. But behind closed doors, her envy and obsession were growing, and one fateful night, she turned that obsession into murder, convincing everyone that Robert Carlisle had simply fallen overboard on his own. Please subscribe for daily new update of Crime Story and watch till end. Samantha Carlisle's life seemed like a dream to anyone who glimpsed it from the outside. Her mornings began with the soft hum of the Florida sun spilling into the windows of her waterfront mansion, the scent of fresh coffee mingling with the salty breeze from the marina. The walls were lined with photographs of glamorous vacations, yachts docked under golden sunsets, and her smiling husband Robert always standing beside her. Friends often described Samantha as graceful, poised, and effortlessly stylish. She attended charity galas, exclusive parties, and social events where whispers of envy followed her everywhere. But behind her elegant exterior, a storm was quietly brewing. To the world, Robert appeared the perfect husband, successful, charming, and devoted, but Samantha knew otherwise. His days were consumed with business meetings, phone calls, and deals that seemed more important to him than anything else. Their conversations had grown brief, superficial. When they did speak, Robert's attention seemed elsewhere, focused on stock reports or client problems. Samantha's desire for attention, control, and recognition grew quietly, feeding a sense of isolation she had never admitted to anyone. Friends often noticed her distant gaze, but assumed she was simply reflecting or enjoying her quiet moments. No one suspected the sharp intelligence and simmering frustration beneath her calm demeanor. The Yacht Elysium was her pride, a floating palace of luxury with polished teak decks, plush cabins, and panoramic windows that opened to the endless horizon. To the public, it symbolized freedom, wealth, and romance, but to Samantha, it was something more. It was her domain, a private world where she could orchestrate her desires without interference. She spent countless hours walking its decks alone, imagining the power it gave her. The sunrises over the water felt different there, as though the world outside the marina's gates belonged to her entirely. The yacht became a mirror for her ambitions, and eventually, a stage for darker plans she had yet to reveal to anyone, not even to herself fully. Samantha's mind often drifted toward the subtle frustrations she endured, the small humiliations she suffered while Robert's attention wandered elsewhere. Each unacknowledged birthday, each overlooked anniversary, each polite but empty compliment felt like a weight pressing on her pride. Slowly, these feelings transformed into something dangerous, a fascination with control, with manipulating the circumstances around her to ensure she would never feel powerless again. The idea of accidents, of things happening perfectly by chance, but influenced by a careful hand, began to consume her thoughts. By the time the evening shadows stretched across the marina, Samantha had already begun sketching scenarios in her mind, imagining ways to regain her sense of power. The life others envied, the beauty and luxury, hid a tension that only she could feel. She moved through her mansion with effortless grace, smiling at visitors, entertaining guests, and pretending everything was perfect. But behind that smile was a mind turning, plotting, and waiting for the moment when the isolation and neglect she felt would transform into something irreversible. The dream life she led was only a facade. The reality beneath it was far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. The Yacht Elysium was more than just a vessel for Samantha Carlisle. It was a private sanctuary where the rules of the outside world no longer applied. By day, its polished decks gleamed under the sun, and the scent of salt water mingled with expensive teak and leather interiors. Guests often marveled at the yacht's elegance, unaware of the tension that simmered beneath its glossy surface. Samantha had grown fascinated by the control it offered. From the moment she stepped aboard, she felt a subtle power in deciding every detail, from the placement of champagne flutes to the route the yacht took along the coast. It was hers, and in that ownership lay a dangerous allure. As the days passed, Samantha's thoughts began to drift beyond mere management of the yacht. She found herself researching poisons, reading obscure forums, and old chemistry books late into the night. Each article she consumed seemed to open a door into a world she had never known, a world where subtlety and patience could give someone complete control over another's life. She became meticulous, keeping notes, recording potential methods, and thinking through scenarios where one misstep could unravel everything. The yacht's privacy made it the perfect laboratory. Here, no one would notice her testing small doses on herself. No one would see the obsessive way she calculated each step. The yacht's interiors reflected Samantha's careful personality. Every room was arranged with precision, every decoration chosen with care. The gleaming kitchen became a stage for her experiments, the storage cabinets hiding bottles she claimed were exotic wines. She watched Robert move through these spaces with the same absent attention that had frustrated her for years, noting every habit, every predictable routine. He never suspected how closely she observed him, never imagined that his comfort aboard the yacht made him vulnerable in ways he could not foresee. To Samantha, his ignorance was a weapon as valuable as the poison she kept tucked away. Visitors who joined them on the yacht saw only the charm and luxury. They laughed over dinner served on the polished teak table, sipped cocktails as the sun dipped below the horizon, and admired Samantha's effortless grace. She played the perfect hostess, her calm demeanor hiding the restless storm inside her. The yacht was her stage, and she performed flawlessly, masking thoughts of control and revenge beneath laughter and polite conversation. Every detail she controlled, from the lighting that caught Robert at his most flattering angle to the music that softened tensions, was another thread in her carefully woven plan. But the longer Samantha lingered aboard the yacht alone with her thoughts, the more she realized how intoxicating the idea of absolute power had become. The freedom to influence, to manipulate, and to decide life or death from behind a serene smile began to feel almost addictive. Every movement Robert made seemed predictable, every glance an opportunity to refine her understanding of him. In her mind, the yacht transformed from a floating palace of luxury into a laboratory of strategy, each room a chamber of calculation. By the time evening fell, Samantha felt a thrill she had never known. The horizon glowed pink and gold, reflecting off the calm waters, but she saw only the possibilities, the power that could be hers if she chose to act. The yacht, once a symbol of escape and leisure, had become the stage for her most dangerous ambitions, and Samantha Carlisle knew that soon the world outside would never see the person she was becoming. The night was warm, the air thick with the scent of salt and luxury, as Samantha prepared the yacht for what would become the most pivotal evening of her life. The Elysium rocked gently in the marina, the soft hum of water against the hull providing a soothing backdrop to the careful planning that had consumed her for weeks. She moved with quiet precision, arranging glasses, selecting the perfect ice, and pouring a drink that to the unsuspecting eye appeared flawless. The cocktail was a work of art, vibrant, sparkling, and seemingly harmless, but it carried a secret ingredient, a rare poison that acted slowly, ensuring no immediate alarm. Samantha had studied its effects meticulously, knowing exactly how it would weaken Robert without causing suspicion. Robert arrived with his usual charm, oblivious to the danger. He laughed as he stepped onto the deck, greeting Samantha with a casual kiss, praising the yacht's beauty and the calm evening. He leaned on the polished railing, watching the sun dip below the horizon, sipping the drink she had prepared. Samantha observed every movement, every smile, storing them in her mind as part of the calculated narrative she would later present to the world. There was no rush, no panic, just the slow unfolding of a plan executed with chilling calm. As hours passed, Robert began to feel unusual discomfort, though he attributed it to fatigue or perhaps the heat of the evening. His movements became slower, his steps less steady. Samantha maintained her calm facade, offering water, laughing at minor jokes, all the while keeping her hands clean, her expressions natural. The yacht's deck, illuminated by soft golden lights, now became a stage for suspense, the gentle sway of the vessel mirroring the subtle changes in Robert's condition. He grew drowsy, his eyes heavy, and eventually sank into a chaise lounge, unaware that each breath was being quietly influenced by Samantha's meticulous planning. By midnight, Robert's condition worsened. Samantha monitored him silently, calculating each moment. There was no panic, no hurried decisions, only the serene precision of someone who had rehearsed every possible outcome. When he eventually leaned against the railing for support, his weakened body betrayed him. The world tilted for Robert, the edge of the deck seeming farther away than it ever appeared. Samantha stepped back, her expression one of feigned concern, letting the slow-moving poison do the rest. The final moments seemed almost accidental, a tragedy shaped by misfortune rather than intent, exactly as she had envisioned. The morning light brought a deceptive calm. Robert was gone. The yacht, so meticulously maintained, now held the quiet evidence of the night's grim events. Samantha stood at the deck, gazing at the shimmering water, her heart beating steadily despite the enormity of what she had done. To anyone else, it looked like a tragic accident, a man lost at sea, slipping overboard in a final cruel twist of fate. But Samantha knew the truth. Every detail had been orchestrated, every step calculated, and every moment leading to this had been under her control. The Elysium, once a symbol of wealth and leisure, had transformed into the silent witness of a crime that no one could yet prove. The morning sun shimmered off the calm waters, casting golden reflections across the deck of the Elysium. Samantha Carlisle stood at the railing, her expression carefully composed. To anyone observing, she appeared distraught, trembling slightly as if overcome by grief. Inside, however, her mind was methodical, already constructing the story she would tell authorities. The accident needed to seem plausible, spontaneous, and entirely beyond her control. Every gesture, every tear, had to convince anyone who might question her innocence that this was a tragic misfortune rather than the product of months of planning. By mid-morning, Samantha contacted the Coast Guard, her voice steady and calm despite the horror she pretended to feel. She explained that Robert had been leaning over the railing, looking at the water, and had slipped, falling into the deep ocean. She described the scene with a mixture of fear and sorrow, ensuring her words evoked the image of a man lost to the unforgiving sea. The authorities, trained to notice inconsistencies, but also influenced by human sympathy, accepted her story at face value. There were no witnesses to contradict her account, and the yacht itself presented no signs of struggle or forced entry. To the world, Samantha appeared to be a grieving widow, a woman suddenly left alone by a cruel twist of fate. The yacht became a scene of investigation, with Coast Guard officers inspecting every inch of the deck. Samantha moved among them, appearing cooperative, answering questions with polite clarity, guiding them through the layout as though explaining it for the first time. She watched closely, ensuring her body language and expressions conveyed vulnerability, concern, and shock. Even the most seasoned investigator would have struggled to sense the tension beneath her polished demeanor. She had rehearsed the story countless times, fine-tuning the details to match what authorities expected to hear from someone in her position. As the hours passed, reporters and neighbors began to circulate rumors of the tragic accident. Samantha participated in interviews, maintaining the delicate balance of sorrow and composure. Every word was deliberate, designed to shape public perception. Social media feeds and news articles quickly painted a sympathetic portrait. Robert Carlisle, the successful entrepreneur, gone too soon, a tragic accident aboard his beloved yacht. Samantha's reputation as a refined, elegant woman only amplified the believability of her narrative. Friends and family, caught up in grief, expressed condolences, unaware that they were speaking to someone who had orchestrated every element of the tragedy. Inside, Samantha felt a quiet thrill. The careful orchestration of grief, the precision of her public performance, reinforced the control she had cultivated. She had managed to transform a meticulously executed crime into a believable accident. As the sun climbed higher, glinting off the water and the polished surfaces of the yacht, she allowed herself a fleeting moment of satisfaction. The world believed her story. The authorities, the press, the public all were convinced that fate, not malice, had claimed Robert Carlisle. Yet beneath the serene facade, Samantha knew the truth. A yacht that symbolized wealth and freedom was now a stage where she had executed the perfect deception. At first, Samantha Carlisle believed her carefully crafted story was flawless. The authorities accepted her account, the press reported the tragedy, and friends expressed sympathy. Yet as days turned into weeks, small cracks began to form in the polished facade she had built. Investigators, trained to notice even the slightest inconsistencies, started asking questions that Samantha hadn't anticipated. She had counted on the accident being convincing, but the human tendency to dig for truth proved relentless. Each query felt like a shadow creeping across her meticulously arranged life. The autopsy report arrived quietly, but carried a shock that no one could ignore. Toxicology results revealed chemicals in Robert's system, substances that should not have been there, compounds not naturally present in food or drink. At first, Samantha dismissed the report in her mind, convincing herself that the investigators would find another explanation, that the poison could be written off as contamination. But she knew the truth. The very method she had painstakingly calculated to be subtle and slow-acting was now a tangible piece of evidence lurking in a sterile document. Investigators also began reviewing marina surveillance footage, an angle Samantha had never fully considered. Cameras along the docks captured the Elysium in the early morning hours, showing Samantha moving alone on the deck after Robert's death. No one else appeared in the frame. It was a small detail, seemingly insignificant to the casual observer, but for detectives it was a glaring discrepancy. Samantha had claimed others had been present, that the evening had included friends, yet the footage suggested otherwise. The quiet tension that had ruled her life now threatened to spill over into exposure. Neighbors and acquaintances also began to provide context that Samantha had ignored in her planning. Some recalled arguments, brief but sharp, between Samantha and Robert in the weeks before his death. Others noted that she sometimes seemed unusually tense or controlling on the yacht. Each recollection, trivial in isolation, started to accumulate into a pattern, hinting at deeper resentment. The investigators pieced together a portrait that was far more complex and far more dangerous than none Samantha had ever imagined. The careful story she had rehearsed so many times was now confronted by a mosaic of subtle truths. Despite the mounting pressure, Samantha maintained her composure. Outwardly, she appeared unshaken, attending social events, speaking to friends, and offering condolences for her loss. Yet beneath the surface, anxiety gnawed at her, a constant reminder that her carefully constructed deception was no longer absolute. Every interaction, every phone call from an investigator, became a test of her ability to maintain the illusion. The yacht, which had once been her private sanctuary, now felt like a gilded cage, a reminder that every detail of her plan could unravel if even one tiny thread was pulled. Samantha realized, perhaps for the first time, that the perfect story she had told was under siege. The investigation was no longer a formality. It had become a tense battle between truth and deception, with the past week's careful orchestration hanging in the balance. For the first time, she confronted the reality that control was never absolute, and that even the most meticulous plan could falter when faced with the relentless scrutiny of those determined to uncover what had really happened aboard the Elysium. The investigation into Robert Carlisle's death moved from suspicion to hard evidence, and Samantha Carlisle's carefully maintained world began to crumble. Forensic experts meticulously examined the yacht, every surface scrutinized for fingerprints, residue or traces of the unknown substance that had caused Robert's death. It was in the laboratory that the first undeniable link emerged: a bottle of poison purchased online under an alias. The discovery was subtle at first, easily dismissed as an unrelated delivery, but investigators traced the purchase through digital records, narrowing the connection until Samantha's name appeared as the ultimate source. Every calculated step she had taken to hide her tracks was now under the unrelenting microscope of forensic science. Detectives also uncovered the meticulous preparations she had made in the days leading up to Robert's death. They discovered notes and books about rare poisons hidden in the yacht's storage compartments, their pages marked with careful annotations. Each reference, each calculation, painted a chilling picture of premeditation. For the first time, the public narrative of a grieving widow clashed violently with the emerging reality. Samantha Carlisle had not been an innocent bystander in her husband's demise. The evidence suggested planning, patience, and cold precision, traits that made her crime particularly chilling. Neighbors and acquaintances provided additional details that reinforced the investigators' suspicions. Some recalled small arguments and uncharacteristic tension between Samantha and Robert. Others mentioned her obsessive control over the yacht and the meticulous attention she paid to Robert's routines. These seemingly minor observations now formed a disturbing pattern. Each piece, when combined with forensic evidence, became part of a story no longer plausible as an accident. The authorities slowly reconstructed the timeline, revealing the careful orchestration that had led to Robert's final moments on the Elysium. Despite the growing evidence, Samantha maintained her composure in public. She attended social gatherings, responded to inquiries, and continued to perform the role of the bereaved widow. But inside, the tension was unbearable. Every glance from a neighbor, every follow-up call from an investigator, felt like a countdown to exposure. The life she had controlled so carefully for years was now a fragile illusion, and even the smallest slip could shatter it completely. The yacht, once a symbol of luxury and freedom, had become a silent witness to her undoing. When authorities finally confronted Samantha with the evidence, the depth of her deception became undeniable. Fingerprints on the poison bottle, digital purchase records, and the toxicology report combined to create an overwhelming case. The narrative she had spun for weeks unraveled under scrutiny. Each detail she had tried to control now worked against her, proving that the careful planning of her crime could not withstand the relentless scrutiny of investigative work. The story that had once seemed perfect, an accidental death, a grieving widow, was replaced by a grim portrait of calculated murder. Samantha Carlisle's world, meticulously curated and fiercely protected, had collapsed. The yacht that had been her sanctuary, her stage, and her instrument of control now symbolized the consequences of her actions. Justice was closing in, and the consequences of her meticulous deception were no longer theoretical, they were inevitable. The life of luxury, power, and control she had built had transformed into a cage, with the walls of evidence closing in around her. Every secret she had kept, every step she had taken to appear innocent, now pointed to one inescapable truth. The authorities were finally uncovering the real Samantha Carlisle. The courtroom was silent, except for the rustle of papers and the low hum of anticipation. Samantha Carlisle sat at the defendant's table, her posture controlled, her expression unreadable. For months, the public had watched the unraveling of the perfect widow story, and now the legal system would decide her fate. Prosecutors laid out the case with precision, presenting the timeline, forensic evidence, and digital footprints that traced the purchase of poison directly to her. The story was no longer a narrative of grief, but a chilling portrait of premeditated murder, each piece of evidence reinforcing the calculated nature of her actions. The jury examined photographs of the yacht, the deck where Robert had fallen, and the small vial of poison that had ended his life. Expert testimony described the toxicology report in detail, explaining how the chemicals found in Robert's system could not have been accidental. Investigators recounted surveillance footage showing Samantha alone on the yacht after his death, undermining the narrative she had carefully rehearsed for months. Every detail worked against her, revealing the careful orchestration behind what she had claimed was a tragic accident. The more the prosecution spoke, the more the image of the grieving widow shattered, replaced by a calculated, ruthless figure who had manipulated everyone around her. Witnesses from Samantha's social circle added another layer to the case. Friends and neighbors testified about arguments they had overheard, about the obsessive attention she paid to Robert's routines, and the moments of tension that now seemed ominous in retrospect. Each account, once minor and easily dismissed, became a crucial thread in the tapestry of evidence. The jury pieced together the story of a woman who had turned her wealth, her charm, and her carefully curated public image into tools for executing a murder that appeared effortless at first glance. Samantha remained composed throughout, a testament to the careful control that had defined her life. But beneath the surface, every word and every glance from the prosecution and investigators chipped away at the illusion she had built. The yacht, once her symbol of power and freedom, had become a silent witness to the truth. And now its story was being told in a courtroom full of people who would never again see her as merely glamorous or sophisticated. The evidence was relentless, and there was no room for interpretation. No alternative explanation could survive scrutiny. When the jury returned with a verdict, it was unanimous. Samantha Carlisle was found guilty of first-degree murder, her calculated deception exposed for all to see. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that she would never again have the luxury of controlling the world around her. The Elysium was seized, its opulence now a symbol of crime rather than elegance, a reminder that even the most perfect appearances can hide dangerous truths. The story of Samantha Carlisle became a cautionary tale, recounted in news reports, true crime podcasts, and documentaries. Her life of glamour, charm, and carefully constructed control ended not in luxury, but in confinement and infamy. The yacht that had once represented freedom and indulgence now stood empty, a silent monument to deception, greed, and the ultimate consequences of manipulating fate. The world had believed the widow's story, but justice had uncovered the truth, leaving no room for illusions.